I've been looking at some handheld gaming devices. This is the ANBERNIC RG556, and it's so close to being perfect that I wanted to show you this. And I also want to talk directly to ANBERNIC because, you know, when you're this close to being perfect, maybe there's a couple little things you can do to just push it over the edge and make it perfect. So we'll talk directly to ANBERNIC in just a second. But first off, let's just talk about what I've got here in my hands. I use OEM keys for a few different reasons. This is the price you're going to pay for Windows 11 Pro if you get a retail key. Let's check those prices on whokeys.com. $30, no, we can do better. Put in TS25, click apply. There we go, $23.22. Let's say you want to get a copy of Windows 10 Pro. Also have Windows 10 Pro, and right now that key still unlocks Windows 11. You can get Windows 10 Home, Windows 11 Home, and we have two flavors of Office. If you're sick of paying that monthly subscription, well, you can get yourself an offline version of Office 2019 or Office 2016. The other thing is OEM keys are generally locked to your hardware, so if you move it from one motherboard to another, you may need to get another key, but you'll have to get many keys to equal the price of one retail key. Let's go ahead and check out with our copy of Windows 11 Pro. All right, just put in my card info. There we go. Click on View Keys and Codes. Once you get to the User Center, click on Get the Key. You'll see your key right here in the middle. Go ahead and highlight that, copy that, press Start, and then type Activate. You'll see Activation Settings. Go ahead and click on that. And then right here it says Not Active. Just click on Change Product Key. Paste in our product key, and then click on Activate. Hey, look at that, active. Head over to whokeys.com. Thanks to them for sponsoring. And now on to our regularly scheduled program. For its price point, there's nothing that beats this. Maybe $50, $60, $70 more. You can get something that's similar, maybe slightly better in some ways, but not in every way. This has a beautiful 5.48-inch OLED screen, and it's 16:9. Looking at the ports on the bottom, we have a headphone jack. Use it if you're in public, you Americans. Then we have our USB-C right there, and there is our micro SD or TF card slot. On the top, we have our volume and power buttons, and then just a vent for the fans, so no cords coming out of the top. All the cords are going to come out of the bottom, which I kind of like. All the analog on this is Hall effect, so you're not going to get any drift or anything. Hall effect, they even did that on the analog L2 and L3 or whatever they call the bumper buttons. I don't know what kids call them these days. We always called them L2 and R2. So yeah, those analogs back there, those are Hall effect as well. And you got Hall effect everywhere. That means that there are magnets, and they measure the distance that the magnets travel. And that's how you figure out where your analog stick position is. There's no moving parts on the inside other than that. Just, you know, your analog stick moves and the magnets say, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here. And it's just a much better because it's frictionless. It's not going to wear down over time. These things should last a long time. So yeah. Now this runs Android, meaning you can play all your Android games, and that's one of the reasons why it's 16:9, because a lot of modern Android games will run just fine on this. I'm talking like Genshin Impact and Zenless Zone Zero. I don't really play a lot of these predatory gambling games. I know people call them gacha, but no, they're predatory gambling games with some really interesting, cool characters and cute stuff. I don't know. It runs. I tried it out for all of you out there who want to try it. It runs. Zenless Zone Zero runs great, and this game has way too much polish. It's like, why is everything about this so polished? Anyway, that runs really well on here. Now, as far as emulation goes, let's talk about this because this is running Android. When you first turn it on, it installs a bunch of emulators and goes through a little setup process, and you can install as many of those as you want. Some of these are out of date. They're not the newest versions of those emulators. However, some of these are hard, and they're like premium versions of emulators, and they're good. So like the PS2, keep that one. PPSSPP for your PlayStation Portable stuff. That one's pretty good. But overall, I think we can go ahead and just leave it alone and install things on our own. It's totally up to you. If you want to just use this out of the box without any fussing, just let it install all of its stuff, and then you can press the little button down here to bring up their emulation center overlay. And if you bought the one that has the SD card, then you can just use that and play all your games. All right, so I think we know what this is. I don't need to like keep over explaining it, right? Let me just tell you where I got it, and then we'll cover the rest of the specs. So I got it over here on Mech DIY. I've worked with them on a couple different things, and I really like what they do. You can get this with a couple different configuration options here. It has 128 gigabytes internally, and if you just get that, you get no games. You can get it with a 128 or a 256 gigabyte micro SD card. That makes the price go up, but right now there's a coupon, new 15, and that will give you 15% off. Pretty good deal. I got the blue version because I like this electric blue. This is Android, so you can play all kinds of things on it. We've established that. You don't play Switch on this. You can play a couple Switch games, but that's kind of the cutoff. PS2, Dreamcast, perfect, fine, great. Play them at 2x resolutions, 3x, 4x, 5x, depending on the game. GameCube works fine. The Wii works fine. There we go. I've covered all that stuff. I'm not going to get into all that. There's a lot of devices that are similar, but the thing that makes this special is the shape. It feels so good in my hands. I've seen some people say that the plastic felt cheap to them, and I think that's insane. It feels really good. It's just smooth, and it can feel like it's going to be slippery. Like if I lay this on something soft like my pants, it does slip around, or put it on like a tablecloth or whatever, it can slip around because, yeah, it's going to be very frictionless. But in my hand, I don't know, something about it. It grips in there just fine. There's no knurling or anything on the back, which I found surprising, but it doesn't slip around. It's like, it's good. It just sticks in there. So it feels way better than any other, handheld console. This is like a little Retroid Pocket Mini, which has slightly better performance in some, but it's 99% the same as far as the performance goes. Just Switch is a little better. But this one feels okay. It's got the bumps in the back right here. It feels okay. And the bigger version of this is very similar, but it's nowhere near as comfortable. So what you'd have to do to make any other device this comfortable, if it doesn't have this sort of a setup, you'd have to go and buy like a snap-on grip. But that's not, the same body. It's a different body. So this one is way more comfortable. All right, now let's talk about all the buttons and stuff. YXBA, all that stuff feels perfect. I have no complaints whatsoever there. It feels good. Nice little rubber domes under there. You can feel them. They're poppy. We have our analog stick over there. We'll talk about those in just a second. Then we have start and select on one side by side. I kind of like having the start and select side by side like that. It's fine with me. It feels old school. Some people prefer it on the other side, but whatever. On the other side, we have our back button, which also doubles as our home button whenever you're in RetroArch or any of the emulators. That'll work as your home button to bring up the overlay. And then we have our little R button right there to bring up their own little emulation center. And it's very basic, but it does the job. That's the thing. It does the job. You can configure it and mess around with it. It's basic. It doesn't support all the systems, so you're not going to be able to get Switch and stuff in here. So I've installed something called Daigisho. It's free. There's another paid app that's pretty good too, but I like this one. And then we have all of our libraries in here. And this one, you do have to fuss around and set this up, but once you do once, then it's set up and you're good to go. It'll even go through and scrape and grab all of the thumbnails and stuff for your game. So I'm using Daigisho. I'll show you how to do that in a separate video. We're going to do like a little Android setup for gaming video. So that's what happens when you press that little button over there. The D-pad, it rocks a little bit. I wasn't really getting many false presses. Wish it was indented maybe a little bit more. It's fine. It's a little difficult to do some of the moves like in Street Fighter and stuff. I prefer like a PlayStation style controller that's a little more recessed and all that, but this one, it works just fine. Then there's our other analog stick, and you can see it's glowing right there. Now, we can control how much this glows. We have our ambient light right there. You tap that, it turns it on and off. On and off. You long press it, and then we have some variations right here. See, I can bring it up and down. I can even turn on like breathing mode if I wanted to. Breathing mode, which would annoy me if I'm trying to play my games. So I'm going to leave it just on the regular old light mode, and I like to turn this way down. If I had the black unit, I would probably not turn it down so much, but see all this surface right here and the fact that this is clear plastic, it would bleed out way too much for me. So this is about where I like to keep it, or just turn it off. But yeah, just make sure that, if you didn't know that, you got to do a long press. While we're here, let's go through some of the Android stuff that they have here in the menu. You know what? I'm just going to plug this up to HDMI because this is not working. So I got this hub here. It's got USB-C and HDMI and all kinds of stuff. It's a full-on hub, and it's USB-C. I'm just going to plug that into the top right here, or the bottom, which means it also supports some docks. And it seems to be hit or miss depending on which one you try. But this one worked. I plugged it in. I got it on Temu. It's like some cheap little thing for like $5 and it works. All right, so here we go. Let's just, what was I showing you? We have our high mode on and off, which I didn't notice any difference when I was playing my games, but yeah. So I leave high mode on. We have our fan on auto. Turn cool on, and you can hear it. It's not crazy loud. Strong. I'm gonna leave it on auto, just so it comes on when it's, needed. A little fan in the back. Then we have our ambient light, and then this is NS mode. So that's a Nintendo Switch mode or Xbox mode, and that changes the controllers, and it's kind of weird. I'm not sure why we need this, but you need to put it in Xbox mode, or else your analog L2 and LR2 or whatever on the back don't work very well. I had to turn this on to make those buttons work in Zenless Zone 0. They didn't work at all until I turned this on. But the weird thing about this is it also switches the position of your buttons, which was annoying. It switches your B and A and X and Y buttons around. I don't want that. So yeah, I wish that we didn't need that, but there it is. Now this also came with some Google stuff installed, but you don't have to sign in to Google if you don't want to. I didn't find a toggle anywhere in here to turn off the Google services. I'm sure you probably could and remove all those if you wanted to. Maybe you have to root this thing, which will bring me to the analog. I'm avoiding the analog sticks because I don't want to talk about that yet, but I'll talk about them in just a second. But anyway, it's a pretty stock installation of Android. I would recommend, like pulling this down and swiping over and putting it on Do Not Disturb so that you don't get a bunch of notifications while you're trying to play games and stuff. And also, when I'm playing games, a lot of times I'll just turn on airplane mode because I don't need to be connected to the internet. In fact, I don't need Wi-Fi basically at all with this thing after I've got it all set up. I'm just playing my games. I don't need the internet unless I'm playing, of course, like Zenless Zone Zero, which I'm not playing those games like ever. Being Android, you got all your Android games right here. Some native apps. So I've got Into the Breach on here, which is the best Android game. Slay the Spire is also probably one that a lot of people are going to argue for, but this has no microtransactions. So try out Into the Breach. You can also get an APK of Vice City if you look around online. I looked around online and found this Into the Breach because it's Netflix only, exclusive unless you sell the 7 Cs. Let's check out our gamepad tester, and we're going to talk about these analogs now. Now, the sticks don't have a lot of travel. They feel okay. They're a little small and they just don't travel that far. But let's go ahead and show you what's going on here. If I go to our joystick smoothness right here, it wants to snap. See, it snaps to these angles. So this thing, I'm pushing up and a little bit to the left, but it keeps snapping me back. This has cardinal direction snapping, which is probably okay when you're playing side-scroller games with the analog. That's okay. But this can play games like God of War, and it can play 3D games, and it can play all kinds of analog games on the N64 and the GameCube and everything. So why? Why, ANBERNIC? Why did you do that? It's ridiculous. So you got to go over here to GitHub. I'll put a link in the description for this. You got to unlock the bootloader. When you unlock the bootloader, it completely factory resets your device. So you do this when you first get it. Completely factory resets everything. Do this with care. If you break your device, then don't talk to me because I don't condone anything. Nothing. So anyway, after that, then you got to get one of these analog fixes and install that. And then you will have real analog. It'll be smooth and everything else. You can also get some analog replacements. Some of the analog replacements that work with the Switch also work with this, which is going to take, 7 to 10 screws of unscrewing and then a couple ribbon cables and you'll be done. But you'll have bigger joysticks that have better travel. And then if you install this patch, you'll have real analog. ANBERNIC, please stop using these tiny little nub analog sticks because they're okay. They're not terrible. I think they feel pretty good. And with this fix, I think 89% of people are going to be just fine. But other analog sticks feel better and travel better and move around better. And then stop with the direction snapping, the cardinal direction snapping. Stop it. Stop it, stop it, stop it. Because this would be perfect if it didn't have that. That's literally the biggest deal. It would be perfect. All right, I've waited until the end to go over the specs because I feel like with the device like this, the specs actually matter less than everything you can do with it, the fit, the feel, and the finish, and the software. So, yeah. The reason I say the software matters less is because with most of the stuff in this price range, you're going to get some Switch, but not amazing Switch compatibility. And pretty much everything before that, you can run at 1 or 2x resolution, sometimes up to 5x on like PlayStation 2 and stuff. So, yeah. But anyway, we'll go through the specs just to show you what we got. We got a Unisoc T820 processor. It's an octa-core running at 2.7 max. And then we have a quad-core Mali G57 at 850 megahertz. That's the GPU. We got 8 gigabytes of memory, DDR4. Then we have an internal 128 gig storage. This one comes with Android 13. Then we have our 2.4 and 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi. It's 802.11ac and also Bluetooth. I want to mention that the Wi-Fi on this is not super fast unless you're close to your Wi-Fi device, I've noticed. So if you want to stream from this, which you can since it's Android, but yeah, I would probably rather use a hub and then like plug up Ethernet that way if you want, but it's okay. We got Bluetooth 5 as well. Comes with 30 emulators pre-installed. And then you can get all those games from Mech DIY, depending on the SD card that you buy. Got a 5,500 milliamp hour battery, and they say it lasts for 8 hours. I was able to use this thing all day for a few days, and it seems like the battery lasts a really long time. The only thing that made the battery go down is when I plug up the USB-C and then plug it up to HDMI, the battery goes down a little bit faster, I noticed. Not sure why. But yeah, charging, it'll support 5 volt, 2 amp charging. It can fully charge this in 3.5 hours. The display itself is 1080p, which is probably a good choice for a screen like this. However, 1440 in your next update, ANBERNIC, would be amazing, because in a screen that's this small, you can run 1440 at half resolution 720p. And then games will play back way fast. Since it's a really small screen, if you're holding it like a comfortable distance, I think 720p still looks really good on this. And your next one, do me a 1440p, because all the old games will run just fine. The CRT shaders will look awesome. And 720p for games like Switch. The weight on this is 330 grams, which is not too bad in my opinion. Feels pretty good in the hands. So, like I said, it's almost perfect. I really like it. There's a couple of Android things I would change here and there, but it really, really does what it's supposed to do, and it's just so comfortable. So if you just install that hack that fixes the analog stuff, then this will be perfect. And Mech DIY said they're talking to their people. Maybe they'll pre-install that. I don't know. Maybe they will. But if they do, that would be amazing. So Mech DIY, if you're watching this, no pressure, but it would be so cool if you could release this with a pre-installed hack and then sell these things. That would be awesome. Anyway, that's pretty much all I got to say about this. I wish they were all this comfortable. And that's such a big deal to me, because I haven't played some of my other handheld consoles pretty much at all, because I pick them up, they're fun, and tinker with them a little bit, and then when it comes time to play them, it feels like I'm just like gripping it like talons. It doesn't feel comfortable in my hands. This feels like a real controller, and it feels like a premium controller. I would rather use this than, well, certainly the Duke, but I would rather use this than a lot of the controllers that I have in the house, and that's saying something. Just analog sticks, but yeah. All right, we're done talking about this. See you all in the comments.